Okay, good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us this evening. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Please note that this public meeting is being recorded. Tonight, we look forward to sharing information with you about the study, responding to your questions, and listening to your comments.
Muy buenas noches a todos y todas, gracias por unirse. Vamos a comentar algunos puntos antes de comenzar. Esta reunión pública está siendo grabada y esta noche esperamos compartir información con ustedes acerca del estudio, al igual que responder sus preguntas y escuchar sus comentarios.
Please note that after this presentation, we will provide instructions on how you can submit comments or ask questions to the study team during the meeting or after the meeting during the comment period. Participants joining us via their computers on Zoom or through their phones are currently muted. I'll describe the meeting format and how to participate in just a moment. But first, if you're having any technical issues right now, you may need to hang up or log off, then redial or reconnect. If you need to access the meeting in Spanish, our Spanish interpreter will now tell you how to do that. Ed Felipe.
Después de la presentación, vamos a dar instrucciones en cómo enviar comentarios o hacer preguntas acerca de esta situación y el equipo del estudio durante la reunión o después de la reunión durante el periodo de comentarios. Los participantes que se están uniendo desde sus computadoras o teléfonos a Zoom están en mute actualmente. Voy a describir la reunión como una reunión formal y vamos a participar en un momento, pero primero, si están teniendo algún problema técnico ahora mismo, deberían de colgar o salir de la sesión y volver a conectarse. Para poder escuchar la reunión en español es necesario ir a la barra de tareas inferior y seleccionar el icono de globo terráqueo en donde dice interpretación o interpretation, después seleccionar el idioma español y ya sea silenciar el audio original. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Felipe. Give me 1 second to, okay. We're looking forward to your comments and questions. After the presentation, we'll describe and display instructions for asking a question or making a comment. Keep in mind that after this meeting, you can continue to ask questions or provide comments anytime by visiting the project website at www.dot.nm.gov/I-25. That's the letter I, the number 2, the number 5, -San-Antonio-Study. The format for tonight is a short presentation, then the remainder of the meeting will be open to the question and answer portion. Please note this event is being recorded and we will be posting it on the website. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to Mark. Mark?
Welcome to the second public meeting for the I-25 US 380 San Antonio Interchange Study. My name is Mark Salazar, and I am the Project Development Engineer with the New Mexico Department of Transportation. The first public meeting focused on the Phase A portion of the study, which consisted of identifying safety concerns, physical deficiencies of the existing highway, and the initial improvement alternatives to advance to Phase B. This presentation will summarize Phase A and focus on Phase B detailed evaluation of alternatives and the recommended alternative. We appreciate your attendance this evening and look forward to your input after the presentation. The New Mexico Department of Transportation has procured the services of HDR Engineering to assist in the development of the study. And I would now like to turn it over to their project manager, Danton Bean, to continue the presentation.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. We appreciate your attendance tonight and look forward to your input and comments about the alternatives and the work that's been done in the study. So let me give you an idea of what the presentation tonight will be about. First, we'll do an introduction of the study team, and then we'll review some of the things that we discussed in the first public meeting, including the purpose of and need of the project, the study. We'll review the discussions and comments from the first public meeting and review the proposed alternatives that were presented in that meeting. The new material that will be presented is the evaluation of those alternatives, and we'll present the recommended alternative to be advanced, and then discuss the next steps in the study and the project development. We'll close with an open discussion and questions. All right, so here's a list of the study team members. I won't go through each name. Some of these individuals will be speaking today, but we're grateful for everyone's participation and help in the progress and development of the study. So first, I want to describe the location of this study. The study area is just outside the community of San Antonio, about 10 miles south of Socorro, and about 90 miles south of Albuquerque. The study area consists of the interchange of I-25 and US 380 and all the ramps of the interchange, between milepost 139 and 140 on I-25, and approximately a half a mile of US 380. The study area also includes a portion of Walnut Creek, the major waterway through the interchange area. All right, so now let's discuss more about the purpose and need. We'll get into depth about the needs that we've identified in the study area. However, in general description are deficiencies of the geometry of the interchange, problematic features, and aged and dilapidated elements within the interchange. The purpose of the study is to improve safety, and will be important to stay focused on that purpose as the study and project develop. So now I'm going to turn the time over to Ravi for the roadway discipline to talk about the findings.
Thank you, Danton. I'm Ravi Stripada, and as Danton mentioned, I'm the roadway lead for this project. I'll provide a quick overview of some of the existing geometry deficiencies that we intend to fix as part of the study. As you can see, both northbound and southbound on-ramps have deficient acceleration lengths to safely merge onto I-25 main line. 150 feet is available, while 1,160 feet is required. And for northbound, 1,580 feet is required. Another safety element our team evaluated is horizontal geometry of the I-25 roadway system. As the roadway alignment curves, the roadway surface is super elevated to help drivers maintain speed and stay safely on the road through the curve. Super elevation means to raise the outer edge of the pavement above the inner edge. The speed limit on I-25 has increased since it was constructed, and now the existing I-25 travel lanes along the curve between US 380 and Walnut Creek does not meet current NMDOT standards. You can see the deficient super elevation along the I-25 that was highlighted in blue on the slide. Deficient. In summary, existing on-ramps are not long enough to allow drivers to safely merge onto I-25. Also, the existing I-25 roadway surface along the curve is not sloped enough to meet the current speed of the drivers. Back to you, Danton.
Thank you, Ravi. So now let's talk about the bridge discipline. There are actually 5 structures in the study area that are considered bridges. The first one is bridge number 3168. That structure is a concrete box culvert. It has 20 cells or 20 barrels. It carries the southbound off-ramp over Walnut Creek. That was built in 1939. The other structures carry I-25 over US 380 or over Walnut Creek. Those were all built in 1964, and they are 3-span steel girder structures. The structures are showing signs of age with cracking of concrete, delamination, spalling. So in summary, all 5 bridge structures are reaching the end of their design life. So now I'm going to turn it over to Andrew to talk about the drainage discipline.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Andrew Wong. I'm the drainage engineer for this study. The drainage infrastructure for this project involves 19 drainage crossings. Incorporated in that, you have 25 culverts. As Danton said, there are 3 bridges. 2 of them are for I-25 over Walnut Creek. And then there's that 20-box culvert for the southbound off-ramp. So each of these elements has been studied to determine their conditions and whether they have the necessary capacity. Throughout the interchange, we did find significant sediment deposits and evidence of scour. So the drainage analysis began with determining how much water will be flowing through each structure. This depends on the size of the basin, the soil conditions, and the amount of rainfall historically experienced in the region. Walnut Creek, which flows through the interchange, is the largest of the drainage basins at over 30 square miles, which results in a peak flow for the 1% chance storm of over 19,000 cubic feet per second. So once we have those flows, we can perform the hydraulic analysis. This utilizes various different computer models. Most significantly is a 2D model that we used to analyze Walnut Creek and the bridges. Based on the preliminary analysis, we did find several of the drainage crossings that were undersized. And the most significant of these is that 20-box culvert conveying the Walnut Creek under the southbound off-ramp. And this structure can be expected to back up and potentially force water toward the US 380 I-25 bridge. And as many of you know, this is what was reported to have occurred in 2018 with that flood in the area. So at the bridges, crossing waterways, scour is always a serious concern. So based off of our field visits, we did find quite a bit of erosive scour around the abutments and the piers. There was riprap protecting the slopes, but that has mostly washed away. As Mark said, there's some short-term projects being done to help stabilize the bridges in the short term, but our analysis indicates that these 2 bridges would benefit from some additional redesign to help ensure that the bridges can remain stable into the future. So I'll turn it back now to Randy to review the public comments that we've received and the discussion from our first public meeting.
Thank you very much, Andrew. On November 16th, 2022, we hosted the initial public meeting to introduce this study. Between November 3rd and December 15th, 2022, we received 41 questions and comments, including 12 during our virtual public meeting. It is important to note that we are listening to what the community is saying, and your comments are very much appreciated. We hear you, and we take what you say very seriously. The study team takes every comment we receive seriously, and we put a lot of value on what you have to say. A majority of the comments we received expressed concern about the current on-ramps, in particular the northbound ramp. Improving the visibility and the safety of this stretch of highway was very clearly a priority for everyone, in addition to how the improvements will address flood control issues. The good news is our study team and the public are on the same page. Safety is our #1 concern. The issues that were brought up around the northbound on-ramp, the visibility issues, and the geometry of the ramps are all areas that our team has identified as issues that will be addressed by this study. When it came to questions about traffic and traffic control plans, those plans will be developed in the final design phase of this project. Maintaining all of the movements in the interchange will be a priority for the design team. They will do all they can to limit closures and traffic restrictions. The intention is to leave things open as much as possible to minimize the inconvenience to the traveling public. So once again, please give us your questions and your comments because we are listening and we want to hear what you have to say, and your input is very valuable to our study team. And with that, I will hand things back to Mark, who will give us an update from NMDOT.
We wanted to share with everyone an update to a few comments received from our first public meeting. The first update pertains to Walnut Creek. The NMDOT currently has a project in place to to mitigate the erosive conditions at Walnut Creek. Improvements consist of grading, installation of concrete drop structures, gabions, riprap, median drop inlets, and culvert pipes. The construction for these improvements is anticipated to begin in the fall, winter of 2023. The second update pertains to the existing I-25 northbound and southbound entrance ramps. As mentioned earlier in this presentation, the existing ramps provide deficient acceleration length and merging distance, poor sight distance, and geometry. The NMDOT will be installing advanced signage for I-25 traffic to utilize the passing lane when approaching the entrance ramp merging area. This is the layout for the new signs that will be installed. The third update pertains to pavement preservation. The NMDOT is pursuing a pavement preservation project for the I-25 main lines from milepost 140 to 150 in the near future, maybe within a year or two, dependent upon funding. This is an exhibit showing the I-25 pavement preservation limits. I will now turn it over to Danton to continue the presentation.
Thanks, Mark. So let's continue talking about our study. We are currently in the study phase. This is the second public meeting in the study effort, and again, to seek your input and comments. The purpose of the meeting is to go over the alternatives that have been evaluated in detail as part of this phase B and review the comments, the recommendations from the team. We want your insights and feedback to help guide the decision-making process. Once we have received your input, we finish our evaluation process. The study document will be finalized, and we'll identify the improvements to be carried forward. Okay, so I won't review all of the needs again, but it's important to keep track of the purpose of the project, and that is to improve safety. Safety is always a top priority for the team, and so we are studying ways to do that. Those needs, again, in general sense, are to improve the geometry, solve some problematic elements, and replace aged and dilapidated structures. So now let's talk about the alternatives that were presented again in the last meeting. We've tried to establish those needs, and these alternatives are the solution. The no-build alternative is always considered in the development of a project. The no-build alternative means that no improvements or modifications would occur. The study team has developed 3 different build alternatives to address and mitigate the issues identified in the roadway, drainage, bridge structures. The alternatives include 1, an enhancement to the existing geometry, 2, a tight diamond interchange geometry and matching the alignment of US 380. And then the third is, again, a tight diamond interchange, but there's an adjustment to the US 380 alignment. So here is an exhibit that shows the first alternative. This alternative improves safety by adding acceleration and merge lanes for both the northbound and southbound on-ramps. It would reconstruct I-25 through the horizontal curve to provide the super elevation needed for the posted speed. It would replace the bridge structures of I-25 over US 380 and Walnut Creek. And it would widen the channel or lengthen the bridge over Walnut Creek to remove that pinch point in the waterway. So the advantages in this alternative are, 1, first, there's a minimized construction cost, and it stays within the the current right-of-way footprint, and so there would be no needs for additional right-of-way. And then, as I mentioned, one advantage again is the addition of those proper on-ramps, proper lengths for acceleration and merging onto I-25. And then again, the improvements to Walnut Creek. The disadvantages are that structure for the southbound off-ramp will remain in place. And that's a potential for flood issues and issues for maintenance in the future. All right, the next alternative, as I mentioned, is a diamond interchange. This is, again, we would add ramps that have proper lengths for acceleration and merging for both northbound and southbound. We would, again, reconstruct I-25 through the horizontal curve to improve the super elevation to current standards. We would replace the I-25 bridges over US 380 and Walnut Creek. And this alternative removes the concrete box culvert structure for that southbound exit ramp. So the advantages of this alternative is that it meets current driver expectation. The diamond interchange is a modern interchange type and it meets those driver expectations. Again, it removes that concrete box culvert from the inventory and reduces that risk of flooding. It replaces those bridges for I-25 and improves the drainage conveyance through Walnut Creek. The disadvantages for this alternative is there's an increased cost when compared to alternative number one. And this alternative would require temporary closures of US 380 during the construction of the bridges, during the demolition, during girder placement, deck pours, US 380 would need to be closed. Okay, alternative three is similar to alternative two. It is a diamond interchange. And the improvements are, again, similar, where we're adding ramps that meet current standards. Again, we're reconstructing I-25 through the horizontal curve to provide the proper super elevation, replaces the bridges on I-25, improves the Walnut Creek channel, and including erosion control and channel improvements for that Walnut Creek. And then again, it removes that structure for the southbound exit ramp over Walnut Creek. So advantages are real similar to alternative number two, with the exception that this alternative does not require closures of US 380 during construction. And I feel like that was a significant advantage for this alternative. The disadvantages are an increased construction cost when compared to alternative one and alternative two. And then there would be some right of way that would be needed associated with this alternative. All right, now I'm going to turn it back to Andrew to give us some information on the proposed improvements for the drainage system.
Yeah, so each of the alternatives that Danton described would involve some drainage improvements. There are a few priorities that we would keep in mind for each of them. The first one would just be to make sure that none of the improvements have any negative impacts on the downstream areas. The second priority is to make sure that the new interchange doesn't flood and will continue to be operational for the design storms. And finally, the goal is also to reduce the regular maintenance required due to scour and sedimentation, and to help extend the operational life of the project far into the future. So for this interchange, we are recommending that any of the undersized culverts be upgraded. There are a few that will need to be removed or extended because of how depending on how the interchange is modified. Each of the proposed alternatives involve either improving or removing the 20-box culvert that contributed to the 2018 flooding. So that would no longer be a concern. And then the most significant drainage improvement is recommending that the Walnut Creek Bridge be redesigned to help benefit water flow through the channel, as well as reduce the scour concerns for that bridge. Back to you, Denton.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, so now let's talk about the evaluation process the team went through with these alternatives. And so we evaluated each alternative considering the purpose and need, or how well does this alternative fulfill the purpose of the project and the needs of the area. And then the second criteria was cost. Cost evaluation includes the construction cost, right-of-way costs, and future maintenance costs. We also looked at these alternatives with some engineering factors and environmental factors. So the other thing important in this discussion is to recognize the evaluation scoring. And we evaluated these alternatives between very positive, which we represent with a double plus sign, to the very negative, which we represented with the negative symbols. All right. So I won't repeat the purpose and need of the area, but it's important to remember that we're trying to improve safety to keep us on track on that target. And the no-build alternative really does nothing to improve safety. So it is evaluated as very negative. The other alternatives do improve safety, and we've evaluated them as very positive. Okay, so now on the cost criteria, again, all of the alternatives will require some cost, either construction or future maintenance. We've scored the no build and alternative number one as negative. No build would require future maintenance costs. Alternative one has elements of construction cost. The alternatives number 2 and 3 have higher construction costs and are evaluated as very negative. All right, so now let's talk about the engineering factors. For the evaluation of these categories, we examined each alternative with the categories listed in the first column. This slide shows how each alternative was ranked for the different categories. I won't discuss in detail the evaluation of each category. However, I'm going to try to summarize the differentiating aspects of the evaluation. The no-build alternative was valued as very negative for several categories. First was safety. There's no improvements for safety. The entrance ramps would stay as is. Second, maintenance. The old infrastructure would require significant effort to keep them going. And then third is drainage. No improvements to Walnut Creek is a concern for the team. So these negative scores for the no-build alternative really eliminated it from consideration. The study team will not recommend the no-build alternative. Okay, so now let's talk about another differentiating criteria. In the first public meeting, we heard how important it is for you, the public, those that are users, to maintain traffic flow through the area during construction. So we put significant weight to that category, and that category is significant differentiator for the alternatives. Alternative number 1 will have a significant impact to traffic during construction and is valued very negative. The construction of those ramps to add acceleration and merge length would require the closure during construction. So we value that as very negative. Alternative number two provides improved options for maintaining traffic during construction, but would still require closure of US 380 during the bridge demolition and construction. Those would be short-term closures for the day or night, and we valued that as a little bit better than alternative number one, but still not very positive. So alternative number three provides the best results for maintaining traffic in the interchange during construction, and we value this alternative as very, very positive. So maintenance of traffic is the strongest differentiator for the build alternatives. Okay, so now let's talk about the environmental categories, and I'll turn it over to Maria to help with that discussion.
Thanks, Danton. So my name is Maria Altimus. I am the environmental planner with HDR for the project. So when looking at the three alternatives, we examined each of the resources or categories listed in the first column there on the screen in relation to the no build and the three action alternatives. You'll see how each of the categories was ranked based on the criteria, or the scoring method that Danton described before. So 0 is neutral, minus is negative, and plus is positive. So you'll see that overall, the no build alternative has a negligible or no effect on almost all the categories, since if there isn't anything built, it won't be affecting the environment. The only category where the no build has an effect one way or the other is when it comes to social resources. Social resources takes into account the community resources, demographics, and economic and land issues. And the no build alternative would have a negative effect on social resources because it wouldn't improve the interchange, and the interchange is a safety concern for drivers and community members in the area. The build alternatives would have a positive effect because they'll improve the interchange, upgrade the bridge, and improve safety. Moving up to the first row, when we look at the general environmental setting, alternative 1 stays within the existing right-of-way and the existing roadway alignment. So there really wouldn't be an effect to the general environmental setting, whereas for alternatives 2 and 3, the roadway alignment is slightly shifted and would impact the environmental setting slightly from its current condition, hence the slightly negative impact there. For natural resources and cultural resources, because there would be ground disturbance associated with each of the build alternatives, there would be impacts to those there would be potential impacts to those resources. First off, for natural resources, grading, including vegetation removal, would be needed for each of the alternatives. Whereas alternatively, the conveyance of Walnut Creek would be improved, which would minimize erosion and sediment transport, and which could be beneficial to plant and animal habitats downstream. So, but nonetheless, the physical impacts on the natural resources during construction was the reason for the negative ranking for this category. For cultural resources, again, because there's ground disturbance associated with construction, there's always a potential to disturb unknown cultural resources below the surface. However, further cultural studies will be conducted at a later phase of the project to fully determine if there would be impacts. So that category is ranked negatively just for the potential to impact those resources. And because the build alternatives require construction, that would necessitate the use of heavy equipment, construction machinery, which would temporarily elevate noise in the immediate area and may impact air quality due to equipment moving and grading from construction. Visual resources would be temporarily affected due to construction vehicles, equipment, signage, traffic control measures. And then kind of moving back up to section 4F resources, those resources include public parks, recreational areas, wildlife and waterfowl refuges, or public or private historical sites. However, there are none of those none of those sites located in the study area, so there would be no impact to Section 4F resources. And then access to adjacent public lands would be maintained, and they would be returned to their original state after construction. So no impacts to Section 4F resources. There would be no impacts to farmlands because there are no farmlands in the area. And then while there is a FEMA mapped floodplain in Walnut Creek, the actual floodplain limits will not be changed as a result of the project. Therefore, the project will not impact floodplains. And then for hazardous materials, there will be further studies if needed for hazardous materials down the road because there is demolition, there would be demolition to bridges and structures. Those structures will be further investigated for hazardous materials prior to construction. So those were ranked negatively just because of the potential impacts there. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Danton to discuss the recommended alternative.
Thank you, Maria. So based on that evaluation, alternative number 3 is the recommended alternative to be advanced into the environmental investigation and design phases of the project. This is definitely one of the areas that we need your comments and input on. And so we look forward to receiving that. Okay, so now let's talk about our next steps. We started the study in the spring of last year and expect to complete it here in a short time this summer. The preliminary design and environmental investigation and documentation efforts will start up soon, and we expect to complete that by the summer of next year. That will then roll into the final design efforts. At this point, the construction funds have not been programmed, so the construction schedule is not known. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it back to Randy to give us some instructions on the questions and comment period.
Thank you, Danton. Our public comment period extends through June 17th, and there are a number of ways you can provide comments. At tonight's meeting, you may ask questions to the study team. We'll try to take questions in the order they were received. If you aren't ready to comment tonight and would like to take more time to provide your feedback, you can provide comments online via the project website, which is on the screen, www.nm.gov/I-25-San Antonio-study. You can comment on the project phone line at 505-357-7327. You can email your comments to I-25SanAntonio@hdrinc.com. And you can mail your comments to I-25 San Antonio Study, care of HDR, 2155 Louisiana Boulevard Northeast, Suite 3000, Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87110-5483. All comment methods are considered equal and must be received by June 17th in order to be recorded in the meeting summary. Comments are always welcome throughout the study. If you'd like to verbally make a statement or ask a question, we ask that you please virtually raise your hand, and here's how you can do that. For those of you using Zoom through your internet browser, mobile phone app, or your Zoom desktop app, simply follow the instructions on the screen. If you would like to ask your questions or make a statement, click the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and then click raise hand. When you're called on, the moderator will unmute your mic and allow you to speak. When you are finished, the moderator will mute your line again, and we ask that you lower your hand by clicking on the raised hand icon. Again, for those of us joining online, all these Zoom instructions are showing on your screen. If you are joining by phone as a call-in participant, press *9 if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment. That'll give us a raised hand signal. When it's your turn to speak and we call on you, press *6 to unmute your line. If you've joined us using one of the Zoom applications, you may choose to submit your question or comment in writing using the Zoom Q&A feature. These instructions are displayed on the screen. If you're joining by phone, press *9 and that will raise your hand, and we'll call on you and you can hit *6 to unmute. We will do our best to respond to questions in the order they are received. And with that, we'll begin answering any questions. So if you would like to ask a question, go ahead and raise your hand or type it into the Q&A box. All right, I see we have a question from Matt Worth. Matt, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. Does New Mexico Department of Transportation have a priority list for projects that are going on throughout the state? And if so, how is it decided which projects are at the top of the list?
Mark, that sounds like a question for you or one of the district people. Can you help us with that?
Actually, is there someone from the district available? I think they might be better suited if they are. I can't see the attendance list.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andreas Linen. I'm the technical support engineer for NMDOT District 1. Mark, let me take a shot on that. Mr. Worth, we following a program that the State Transportation Improvement Plan. This is a public document that you can follow on the NMDOT website. Within that plan, we are identifying ongoing projects that the NMDOT has programmed. It shows you within the next 4 years which of these projects are actually obligated for funds and therefore for letting on construction. So this study that we're doing right now, the purpose is for us to identify the necessary funds needed to address the warrant improvements. Like the team explained currently, we looked at the numbers. They're estimated between $60 to $75 million. This money is currently not programmed. So, but with the result of the study, it allows us to go out and look for grants, look for funding sources, with the results being the justification that these improvements are warranted. So I can recommend, if you're curious about the projects ongoing, you can also look at the letting schedule that's as well on the NMDOT website. There you can see which projects are actually currently are under bid or going out to construction. Did I answer your question, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much for participating tonight.
Just wanted to add in that Amy Evans from NMDOT also said that all project and letting information can be located on the NMDOT website. And if you have specific questions, you can always call her at 575-640-5981. Thank you, Amy.
We have a next question from Don Boyd. Will you be using a partnering consultant to facilitate the resolution of disputes during the project? And I'm going to take that. That's a NMDOT question.
Yeah, Victoria, I guess I'll let Mark jump in on that, but my first response would be that we hope there are no disputes during construction, and we don't foresee that. But Mark, did you have anything to add?
So during construction, especially a project of this magnitude, we typically do have a consultant on board to assist during that construction period. And we would work closely with them and the member of the public that has a question or dispute. We work together to resolve that.
I don't see any other questions right now. So, and I'm going to go ahead and ask one. So the question I'm going to ask is, if alternative 3 is ultimately chosen, how long would construction take and what kind of road closures should be expected?
Yeah, thanks, Randy. Alternative number 3, as we tried to describe in the presentation, we view it as having the least amount of impact to closures, least closures. And so as far as the construction period, there's a lot of those details that are still to be determined. We expect with the number of bridges that would be constructed that it would be more than a year time frame. But there's details associated with the construction that would still need to be developed to finalize the construction period.
Again, if you'd like to ask a question, go ahead and click that raise hand button. And if you're joining us by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. And then when we ask you to unmute, you'll hit *6. Does anybody else have any questions at the moment? All right, I'll ask another one then. The question is, will the selected alternatives address the visibility problems with oncoming vehicles that is currently present for the northbound on-ramp?
Yeah, definitely. That is everyone that I talk to about this project, that's the first thing that they ask about, and the first thing that they identify as an issue on this interchange is especially the northbound entrance ramp, just as unsafe and sight distance wise, and then merging acceleration into the I-25 lane. And so the study team is fully aware of that, and will incorporate those geometry of the new interchange to meet current standards and improve that the safety. So yes, we're definitely focused in and improving that.
Okay, so Deb Williams doesn't have a question at this time, but wanted to express support formally from the Bosque del Apache National Wildlife Refuge for pursuing alternative 3. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Looks like we have another question from Mr. Worth. Mr. Worth, go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. Does NMDOT already have the necessary building materials to complete the project? And if not, do you think that might be an issue holding the project up?
Thank you. That's a great question. At this point, the acquiring of building materials is really upon the contractor that bids on the project, and we don't expect any supply issues. Some of the items needed on projects do require some lead time, some time to acquire. At this point, we're not anticipating any issues with that. Some of those things are definitely subject to the climate of the economics, and gas fluctuations. Those type of things always have an influence, but and some of that's unknown this far out. But at this point, we don't have any anticipation expecting any issues with that. Mark, anything you wanted to add on that comment question?
No, you're correct, Denton. Right now, we're too early in the development to know if there's any concerns for materials. But as Denton mentioned, at this moment, we don't see an issue. But as the plans develop, we get more specific on what materials are needed, and that's further along in the process.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to ask you one more question, Dan, and I think you addressed this, but I know this was a big issue from our first public meeting. So Will the selected alternative address the visibility problems with oncoming vehicles that is currently present the northbound on-ramp?
Yeah, again, is definitely an area of focus for the study team, and we'll improve that and improve safety. Yes, thanks, Randy.
All right, does anyone else have any other questions they'd like to ask or make any comments? I don't see any hands raised and I don't see anything in the Q&A box. So with that, I want to thank everybody for their attendance this evening. We really appreciate you taking the time out and to provide your comments again. We're through June 17th, and on our screen, we're telling you how you can do that. You can do it through the website. You can make the phone call. You can do it through email. You can do it through USPS. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on the alternatives. So, Dan, any last words?
No, thank you. Again, we thank you for your participation. We look forward to your comments. They're very important in the process. And so please submit things, in whatever way is easiest for you. Email, mailing, calling in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.